Hi guys, welcome to my video. I want to do something a little bit different today. It's been a while since I've done a hobby update. I think my last hobby update was my Beau Chamois project about a year ago now, which has come around quickly. I've moved away from that. It's finished, but I'm rebasing it. I wasn't quite too happy with the basing. I kind of got a little bit bored of it after a while painting the uniforms. And within the last, so around about September last year, I came across a project that I wanted to start for a while, but I was more sold on the uniforms rather than the history of the period. And it wasn't until I actually started reading about it that I realized just quite how interesting it was. The models were the main drawer for me. So this is the Carlist War. First Carlist War specifically, most people war game. The second and third, there's not really much material to war game with. Specifically the third I'd like to have a look at, but there's really no models. You could probably convert some. So I ordered a load of Perry models, just a small starter force, maybe a couple of blocks and men for use with the sharp practice rules. And I quickly figured out just how addicted I was going to get to painting them and the history of the period. When I started reading about it, it's just really a fascinating period. For somebody who, if you want to do something slightly different to Napoleonics, very similar tactics, more guerrilla style skirmish fighting, but large blocks of troops and great terrain and scenery. Yeah, Carlist Wars is a great option, and I think most people who game it probably game it for those exact reasons. They want to try something a little bit different to Napoleonics, and the uniforms are there as well. The uniforms are wonderful, and as you see in the later 19th century uniforms, got more and more uniform. And the Carlist Wars has so many different varied types of uniforms, so there's plenty to paint. But anyway, enough waffling. I just wanted to quickly, if you were looking again in the period or interested in the period, I mean, these are the books that I went to. And some of them are quite hard to get. Well, specifically one is hard to get. So my first recommendation, if you were going to get into the period, would be turn this down here. There you go. Would be the Comrade Khan's book on the First Carlist War. Now this was actually issued by Perry, I think 2007. So the book is pretty old. You can get a copy. I found a copy on eBay. I probably paid a little bit too much for it, but I wanted it. Most people are, I think, willing to part with them for about £20-30 and above. Most people don't know sort of the value they're worth, really. It's a very niche period, as I said. And this is just a great book. I mean, this has everything you need to get started in the period. Classic Perry plates, little like synopsis on the history of the period, both sides of the conflict, battles, flags. I mean, really, it's just wonderful, this book. Just for example, if you wanted to see if I can find them, I mean, so for example, some of the Perry plates on the Liberal troops, and this is what you've come to expect from the Perry uniforms on their boxes as well. The way they do the illustrations. So that's a great book. I would recommend highly getting that, and if you were going to get into the period to start with. This is another one as well, and this is a guy who actually I've got quite a few books from. Gabriel Espos. I'm not going to say that, but the book is I mean it's good Osprey. It's small. It's very small. It's probably about 40 odd pages. But it fills in some extra things. I specifically the illustrations are really good in these. Sometimes with the Osprey books, they're newer ones. The illustrations aren't. They're good, but they're not. They're nothing amazing. But these are really. I mean, the amount of work that went into those is really phenomenal. This is nothing groundbreaking. This is a very quick guide to the period. 30-40 pages. So that one's nice and cheap and easy to get. Now the other one that I've come across recently off Partisan Press. Caliver Books, but it's a Partisan Press book, and I don't know if this is an old book or if this just came out, but I was looking around the internet recently and I came across it and I had to have it. I mean, it's So, Armies of the Carlist Wars, all three wars. I don't think there's any other book that covers quite everything this book does. It's around about £30 to £40. It's worth every penny. If you're interested in the period, if you're still gaming the period and know a lot about the period, get it. There's stuff in here I didn't know. It really covers a lot of ground, and niche units I didn't even know existed. The second war doesn't have a lot of content. Again, its second conflict wasn't really a war. It was, more of a revolt over a couple of years. There's not a lot of information about it. But the third, I haven't started reading about the third yet, but there's loads here. The first war is around about 150 pages of this book alone, I think. Around about 100 pages. Let's say 100 pages. Just covering the liberal Cristino forces and the Carlist forces. Now, the main reason to get this is obviously, and this is, keep in mind, this is published by the same guy who did the Offspray book. So you will find stuff in here that is repeated, but it's repeated because it's common knowledge. But there is a lot of stuff in here that I didn't know, specifically about the Carlist forces. The illustrations are just wonderful. It's just page upon page of amazing illustrations, and specifically I believe they're color paint uniform plates. The artist is, I think he passed away, but the artist is credited at the start of the book, and I believe they got permission to use these. The guy who does these is wonderful. The book is full of these, and just for example, that picture has aduaneros in it. Loads of really, really very niche Carlist units. Just if you have an interest in the period, just buy this book. Specifically, if you like the liberal uniforms, it more focuses on the royal guard, which I found a little bit interesting. But the Carlist forces, it has everything. There's really all sorts in here. So, yeah, have a look at the book. It breaks down the armies of the Carlists, armies of the north, armies of the centre, the Catalonian forces. Yeah, this is indispensable. And if it just came out, great. Go get yourself a copy. So enough waffling. 7 minutes. If you're still bored or you're still watching me, great. I'm going to go through my forces I've been collecting and painting for the last 6 months. It's 95% there. There's a couple more things I would like to add, specifically a unit of cavalry. I wouldn't say I love painting cavalry. I like painting mounted officers. Probably a unit of cavalry when it takes me, the inspiration takes me. And I need to paint the army of the North Grand Commander, which is Thomas, don't know how you say his surname, Zuma, Eloqui or something like that. But yeah, I need to paint him as well. So I'm going to show you the project now, and please enjoy. Thanks.
Okay guys, so this is my Carlist forces I've been working on. We'll get down to a little bit more ground detail. This is specifically targeted, this was specifically inspired by the Army of the North. I think they have probably the most interesting forces and the background and the uniforms. So I've tried to include units from that army in particular. There's no units of Army of the Centre or Valencians in this force. So let's just start. Let's get a little bit more down to the level. So this is for sharp practice. So you've got a rank 3 officer. The flags were done by a really nice guy at Flags of War, I believe. Yeah. And I asked him to do the flags for me. I hate making flags and trying to get them to look as good as this. Lazy, I know, but they look the part. I think I'm very happy with them. Did a little bit of painting over the initial paint on there. Yeah, they definitely did a job. And then we've got a unit of skirmishers, skirmishers, and then you've got a big block of troops from Navarre specifically. These are my troops from Navarra. Some musicians. I really tried to use all of the sculpts that Perry do. rather than waste any, just pick specific ones. I tried to really just paint as much as I could. I just had so much fun painting these, so yeah. Then we've got a couple more standard bearers. Classic flag of the Carlist army. If you know about the period, you'll know what that represents. And then we've got some lovely monk chaps over there having a nice conversation. And then this is my column from I believe it's Jikupoza, but that's probably wrong. This is their general uniform, and I decided to do these guys in the summer trousers. Now, Carlists generally wore red winter trousers and white in the summer, although that in reality it probably didn't matter. It was whatever they had on hand. And again, to Carlist armies, there's probably some level of ununiformity. In reality, this would have probably all had different sorts of shapes and colours. But, as with Napoleonics, we paint for spectacle, really. And most people I see paint all in the same colour. So that's what I wanted to do. So that's the column there. And then shoddy camera work. And we got some more priests here. Do love this chap. He's probably one of my favourites. So they count as holy men in the sharp practice rules. And then you have my unit of Oliver Guides. Really nice uniform. Love how these guys came out. Oliver Guides were one of the elite guide units in the Northern Army. Particularly, they were, I believe, distributed, or they were put in other units to increase their experience. And I tried to keep the greys different with the project, because there's a lot of grey in Carlist armies. So, for example, this is neutral grey, Vallejo neutral grey, with a shade, and then layered again, and then I believe I used neutral grey mixed with light grey, and then highlights. If that focuses. And then with these guys, for example, I used, I think it's Vallejo medium sea grey, and then again mix, and yeah, just you do get you can see the difference in the greys very, very well. So I'm happy with that. And then you have we have a cannon, rather a little mountain gun. Again, these are troops from Oliver. Same uniform. Yeah, great model. Really had fun painting that. That was real joy to paint. And then just a little ammo donkey for the gun itself. I'm using this as a movable deployment point in the a deployment point in the game. So it has some purpose, which is great. Serves double purpose. And then finally, the classic unit of Guías de Navarra, which are just, if I can get it to focus, yeah, that'll do. Yeah, really wonderful uniform. I think probably one of the uniforms that I looked at and wanted me to get into the period. And funny enough, they were one of the first units I bought, but they were one of the last ones I decided to paint, because I'm strange like that. And then we have tried to use all the little bits up from the Guías box that Perry sell, the little Perry blisters. We got this will be a movable deployment point. As I said, I use these for sharp practice, and I wrote my own set of rules for the Northern Forces, and I decided to give the Guías de Navarra movable deployment point. Makes sense, they were a guide unit. Yeah, I think that's represented quite well on the tabletop, and they're a unit of light infantry, so that's what they represent on the table. Now, so that's everything painted so far, guys. I would love to add a unit of cavalry, and just maybe another rank 3 Grand Officer. So I want to specifically base it on Thomas, who led the Northern Forces before he was killed. And the plan now is to move on to the Liberals, and I've put a big order in with Perry. And yeah, that's probably going to take a few months. I'm aiming to try and get as much of it smashed out before maybe, the next 3-4 months. I'd like to have at least, let's say, around about this much liberals. I think that's a realistic target. And then I will be adding another update. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this, guys. If you've got any questions, please ask. If you watched the video, appreciate the interest. I will be trying to add more hobby projects. I just get tied up in them and forget to record. If you did want me to send you a copy of the sharp practice list, please feel free. I know there's some dotting around on the internet, but they're quite hard to find. And really with sharp practice, if you've done enough research into the period, you should know really how the troops will be represented on the tabletop. So I've tried to represent that in their stats. Okay, enough waffling. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great weekend.